Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso at the1916company.com for all purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. And this is one of my personal hero watches. Launched in 2009 and immediately won the GPHG Aiguille d'Or, effectively Best Picture at the Oscars of Watchmaking, and it won at a Swiss competition as a German watch. The Zeitwerk, a digital time teller inspired by the 5-minute clock at the Semperoper in Dresden, the opera house of the region, famous for its 5-minute clock, inspiring the dial layout of this jumping digital time watch. Now, properly speaking, it was the late Gunter Blumlein, one of the founders of the modern Lange Söhne, who first envisioned a jumping digital time watch. So this is in many ways one of his many brainchildren. The timepiece, 42 millimeters in diameter, in white gold, measures a surprisingly svelte, I'm going to show you the jump there because I know you're waiting for that, a surprisingly svelte 13.1 millimeters thick. So it looks rather sheer and cylindrical. It's actually not that thick in profile, just a little bit thicker than a sub or a GMT. And from lug tip to lug tip, 49.7 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. The watch is massive. You really feel the gold. And the dial, at least the black part of the dial, is made of sterling silver. Now, my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, and I believe you could wear this watch on a wrist at least my size and larger. I think this is a good fit. I wouldn't go too much smaller. I'll give you the down the barrel view, which I find is always the truest, over the top, which tends to exaggerate the width of the watch. And then in profile, you can see it's got a sloped bezel, which does sort of allow it to fit underneath tighter dress cuffs. It's a dress watch, but it's not a frumpy dress watch. I don't think you need to put on a tux to wear this. The man makes the watch, not the other way around. So if you want to rock this with board shorts and a t-shirt or a polo shirt, go for it. The strap is high grade. And one of the reasons I'm reviewing this watch again so soon after last featuring it is because this is on a different strap. And I think the different strap changes the aesthetic, so I want you to see the actual article. Medium brown, semi-gloss, large rectangular, symmetrical scale alligator leather. You can see there's a folded edge, a monotone stitch, a little bit of bolstering to give it volume. And on the bottom, calfskin, a brand new Lange factory strap. No crimping, no gouging. Taking a quick look at the buckle, you can see it says B, the little B, meaning it's made by Brogioli in Switzerland, which is why this German watch buckle has a Swiss hallmark on it. White gold, of course. This is 18-karat gray gold, the type of white gold that never needs to be rhodium plated. Two smart features on Lange's pin buckle, because everything about Lange watches tends to be pretty smart. It has an elevated bridge so that the strap sits in the buckle, not under the buckle, so it doesn't add height on the wrist. It has this little retaining bar too. So if you're like me and you're going to use the smallest hole or even punch a few smaller holes, you know that a tightly strapped watch can get pinned on the pin. Thanks to that little bar, that won't happen. Now, another feature that Blumlein advocated for in the Lange model line, stepped lugs. He thought the brand needed something to set it apart. And since Lange was only refounded in 1990 and delivered its first watches in 1994, it needed to set itself apart from the better established Swiss high horology watchmakers. Stepped lugs was their solution. Now you can see the case band is satinated. That's not universal on Lange watches. Some are full polish, but all of them have an air de famille. Where this really sets itself apart is the off-centered crown, and the crown is unique to the Zeitwerk, so you won't see this crown on other Lange watches. There is a unique sensation to winding a Zeitwerk mainspring. It's incredibly powerful, which means even with some reduction train built in to multiply your torque a bit, you still really feel the effort. And there's a good reason for that. A huge amount of energy is necessary to run this watch for its 36-hour power reserve. On the dial, we have a couple things going on. First, we have the design drawn from the 5-minute clock at the Semper Opera House, known as the Semperoper. We also have a black segment that's all black galvanized sterling silver, power reserve indicator, seconds, and of course, if you missed the beginning, we do have hacking seconds, so you can set this watch to a reference time. The two hands are white gold. This middle section is actually part of the movement. So what you're looking at there is a jewel, and that is the central pivot for the two discs that display the minutes. There's another disc that displays the hour, and if you want, you actually can play with this quite a bit, and you can jump it forward and backwards. You're not going to damage it, so you can demonstrate it to your friend if you really want instant gratification. Proudly made in Germany, state of Saxony, East Germany, Glashütte, the traditional glass-blowing, silversmithing, and watchmaking heartland of Germany. And so you've got this time bridge. This is actually made of German silver, but to give it a more consistent aesthetic on the dial side of a white gold watch, they rhodium plated it to make it silver. We'll do the jump. You know what? We'll do the full jump. I'd want to see it, and I know you do too. Now, German silver in its natural state looks like this. It's a nickel copper zinc alloy, the copper giving it the golden hue. By the way, I talked about looking at maker's marks here. This is FTOR. SUG and Centror are the other two case makers for Lange, which properly speaking doesn't make cases, bracelets, clasps. So FTOR is a company owned by Richemont, which is why you see a Swiss hallmark on this German watch. Richemont owns Lange, Richemont owns FTOR. FTOR in Switzerland makes this case. Okay, back to the watch. The movement is large, and I mean really large. This is almost the size of a pocket watch caliber at 36 millimeters. So while the watch is large, it's no bigger than necessary given the demands of the movement. You could see that there is a Maltese cross style black polished steel stopworks, and that the barrel, you can see its cover moving here. It has a stopworks that prevents you from overwinding it, and it will also stop the watch when it no longer has enough energy to jump the time. Now the barrel cover, you can see here, is surrounded by the separate triple anchored bridge that helps to hold the enormous force of the mainspring static. There's a steel bridge right here with a second locking lever, and then under that you can see a sandwich of two third wheels, and there's a blue hairspring between them, and that blue hairspring is the remontoir. Because so much energy is being communicated the drivetrain by that mainspring, there needs to be something to buffer between the mainspring and the escapement, otherwise the escapement would be destroyed. It also helps to ensure that despite this being a jumping time watch, a genre notorious for bad timekeeping, that this is actually a very good timekeeper. So that little spring, the hairspring between the two third wheels, it gets 1 minute's worth of energy through the remontoir system, and properly speaking, the spring is the remontoir. And so for 1 minute, that little hairspring powers the balance, which beats away at 18,000 vibrations per hour and is free sprung. All the fine adjustment, rather than being done generally with the swan's neck adjuster, it's done by turning the eccentric masses on the rim. And there's a feature rarely seen on Lange watches here, which is an overcoil hairspring. You could see that it is adjusted in 5 positions like a chronometer. Well, the overcoil has a very centered mass, and having a very centered mass, you can turn it in just about any position, and it won't have a tendency to breathe faster, so it'll keep consistent time in any orientation. 68 joules underpin this mighty movement. You can see, though it is large, it doesn't lack for fine finish. We have Streifen, or stripes, across the bridges. We're not in Switzerland, they're not Côte de Genève. You could see that the edges of the bridges, including the steel bridge, all mirror beveled. We have freehand engraving on the escape wheel cock as well as the balance cock. We have a black polished swan's neck. We have a black polished stopworks. We have a black polished cover to the escape wheel. We have a black polished anchor for that secondary escapement. And you can see we have a black polished click and click spring to prevent the movement from running backwards. So we have both polished screws here and we have fired blue screws. So both have been applied. Both feature chamfered circumference and slots. There's engine turning on the base plate of caliber L043.1. What this means is that it's a Lange movement. Work started in 2004. It was the third movement started that year, and this is the first revision of the movement. You can even see the bridge underneath the balance has been snailed with beveled edges. Snailing on the barrel cover, solarization on the ratchet wheel and the crown wheel, and you can see that even the teeth of these wheels have been micro-beveled. It simply runs over. The cup runneth over with fine finish. This watch lacks for nothing. One of the greatest timepieces of the modern age. It still stuns. Reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing details. Oh, one more thing, just in case it's not completely obvious. 30 meters water resistant. Do not take your Zeitwerk diving.